All right, everyone, welcome to this week's press conference. The Blue Raiders will begin conference play 6 o'clock on Saturday against Western Kentucky. So at this time, for those on Zoom, we do have people in-house, so there'll be questions from them. And also on Zoom, just raise your hand and we'll get to you. So to get things started, I'll bring up the head coach, Derek Mason. After him, we'll have our players. Thank you.
How y'all doing? We are excited to get into conference play. It's Western Kentucky week, happening a little earlier this year than most, which is great. And we get an opportunity to kick off our third contest of the season at home versus Western Kentucky. Everybody understands 100 miles of hate. As history goes in this game, but for us, man, we're coming off a game with a tough loss to Ole Miss, but understanding that we're in a space where we had a chance to look at the film, get better, take the get better from the film, and make sure that we apply it to where we are. Because now we understand exactly where we're trying to go. We're in this space where Conference USA starts. Everybody understands that. I think for us, we understood what our goals were coming into the season, and so now just taking the lessons from the first two seasons and applying what we know about this football team right now, and to move us forward, propel us forward for where we need to go is of the utmost importance. Right now, it's about making sure that we are focused on this week. Every week stands on its own. We were able to put the Ole Miss game away, and now it's truly about where we go in the Western Kentucky game. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Coach, similar start to the season for Western Kentucky as Middle's had here, game against a top 10 opponent and then an FCS opponent. Given that, what can you pull from film of them right now about who the 2024 Hilltoppers are at this moment?
Well, from game one to game two, obviously they got better in a different type of way. I think for them, being able to go out and play an Eastern Kentucky allowed them to have some offensive proficiency. They got a goose egg defensively, and I thought they played better on special teams. So when you look at it, I think for them, it's a confidence game. Coming out of a game where it was a little more one-sided in that contest, and we got a chance to see what their quarterback is capable of. You get a chance to look at TJ Finley. He's a big guy, big arm. I've known TJ, was with TJ at Auburn, so had a chance to see him every day and how he works. But I think the guys around him played better from game one to game two. And like I said, defensively, Coach Summers does a really good job of moving it around. They're secondary driven with some dudes in their front seven that can give you some issues. So, again, I thought they had a great second game, and I think that game leads them to exactly where we are, which is a conference showdown in week 3.
Coach, during the hiring process, and since you've been hired, how much was it stressed that this is the game? This is the game you want to win all year. And how familiar were you with this rivalry before you came here, when you were at Vanderbilt and so forth?
Familiar with the rivalry, being at Vanderbilt and obviously being in the area. You hear about, those games and what those games are, right? And having participated in a couple of rivalry games, in this state, myself, understand the significance completely, right? Coach Helton and his staff have been together for a little bit. This staff is coming together, and I think it doesn't change the complexity of the game or the fight or the want to or the willingness to go win, right? I think that's what this game is about. It's about bragging rights between 100 miles, and everybody knows and understands, what this thing is about. Our guys, for the fan base and for everybody around it, the narratives are great. For our football team, we got to be about what happens between the white lines, right? And so the function of what we do, the 100 miles of hate is going to be 100 miles of hate no matter what. We gotta play well, and I think that's really what's been the focus. But it's great to have a guy like Lou Pascal on your coaching staff. He's played in that game. He understands what it is, and as he speaks to our team, because when you talk about a special teams coach, your special teams coach speaks to your team as much as you do. And so I've asked Luke to give some narratives around this game as I set it up for the week in terms of how I want us to attack this week. I think Luke's going to be able to, give some insight, okay, and some smaller pointed narratives to this game and what this game means. So I think we have an idea. Man, we don't downplay it. We talk about it and give it its just due, but we still know and understand that we got to prepare like the right way, and that's what a Tuesday practice is, right? First and second down, and then you get to a Wednesday with all the other preparations around what we call situational football. But every day, they'll know. They'll hear the Western Kentucky fight song a couple of times in practice this week over the loudspeaker for sure.
Coach, on Saturday, Marion Bailey had a big game, true freshman, 7 total tackles. Just talk about him, getting some good PT as a true freshman, and then obviously having the game that he did.
I've always been a guy to play young guys. I think young guys become old guys. I'm not afraid to play young guys because I think that's why some of those guys came here. They came here to have a chance to compete, and I've always believed in us, no matter where I've been, having functional, depth. He's earned the right. You saw Corey Smith play as well, right? I think there were 6 freshmen that played, like in this past game. You got to go guys up fast. But Amarian, I look at where he is. He's never been afraid to play football, right? His fear factor is low, and his productivity, like as we saw on Saturday, can be high. So with that being said, as guys have been nursing themselves back to health, we look at Drew Francis not being in the lineup, man, we understand exactly, like where we are, with our linebacker situation. Like we look right now and young guys are having to play, but this complement of linebackers is going to be back soon. So that just means we're going to be deeper, okay, and more experienced at what we do. But it was good to see him play. He didn't flinch. He hit everything that was moving. And that's really what you want to see from a young guy. Hey, man, you may not know a whole lot, man, but run and hit something, okay, and make it right. Because as a linebacker, you always fix it with violence. And I thought that's what we saw from him, and it's going to be good to see what he does moving forward.
Coach, I think around the second quarter against Ole Miss, y'all rotated the DBs using some of that functional depth. Brendan Harris was maybe more nickel. Marvin Myers was outside at corner.
Yeah.
What sparked that idea in that game to go with that rotation? And then how did you evaluate how those guys did, maybe playing out of position, quote unquote, in those situations?
Yeah, for us, you're always looking to create, depth at positions. Man, we've had a couple of guys injured and out, and as guys, because for me. It's always a sprint to Saturday, okay, in terms of recovery. And some guys traveled, okay. They went out there on Saturday, and they moved around well. I just didn't think they were ready. But other guys were put in positions throughout the week. I always start the Tuesday practice with the idea that, hey, this is what we got to do, and those guys are practicing. Marve had a short week of practice, man. You saw Shellman for the first time. This season, those guys have experience, right? It's just putting them in position. Marve came here as a corner, so it was more natural to put him back at corner, and I think what you see from him is less thinking, more processing, and the athletic ability. I thought he tackled well. We went into the game plan with these guys of not giving up deep shots, and for the most part, we didn't give up deep shots. They sort of bled us a little bit, but I saw a guy like Marve start to come into his own. And I thought he tackled well on the perimeter. There's some technical things that he can clean up. But when you see the speed, Marve is one of the fastest dudes on this team. And so, to see him run down a guy that was, 7 or 8 yards ahead of him and get him down and give us a chance to defend a blade of grass, that's what we're talking about. These guys are experienced. You're going to see some more guys coming back. And as that experience comes back, I think what you're going to see is a more nuanced and a more cohesive unit. Right now, it's a little, it's been a little inconsistent because of the bodies that we're playing, but the consistency is coming.
Coach, you talk about that Western Kentucky offense. Anything you can point out from them that could be a challenge for this defense?
Yeah, TJ got back on track, and I think it starts with him and the protection up front. When you look at, what these guys do, Drew Hollinshead and, Will Friend, and I was with Will at Auburn, those guys are co-OCs, right? So you see some of the spread, okay, and really some of the sort of run and gun offense with the spread principles, but then you also see some of the Will Friend gap scheme, zone scheme scenarios in the run game. So I think it's going to be a mix of run and pass. Obviously, we're going to try to pressure and confuse the quarterback. That's really what it's about, right? We're going to make sure that we try to get four-man pressure on the quarterback, as well as making sure that we try to stop the run. We have to do a better job of stopping the run. I thought in week 1 we were solid. I thought this week we bled a little bit, and it had everything to do with guys not being on the same page fit-wise. They're going to challenge that. That's what I know about Will. Okay, man, if he sees something, he's going to scratch where it itches, right? And so we have to make sure that we're gap sound in the run game, okay, and that on the perimeter, man, we can challenge. And I think from mans to zones to pressure, it's all going to be up. Again, 100 miles of 8, okay, first conference game, man. Guns are loaded. Let's go.
Coach, you talked a little about the rivalry for you. What should this rivalry mean to the Middle Tennessee area?
Well, for alums and people that have been around, this is bragging rights. People have friends that are right up the road. I think the MTSU alumni and the Hilltopper alumni and fan base, they commingle, right? Some of these people fish together. Some of these people, work together. It sort of is what it is, right? My barber is a Hilltopper. I'm not gonna let him cut my hair this week. That's for sure, right? We don't go there during game week, but I think as rivalries go, our fan base is going to show up. They're going to be excited to see us play, and I'm sure Hilltopper's going to come down here to watch their team play. So it's one of these where bragging rights is on the line, and anytime you have bragging rights, it becomes like the Hatfields and the McCoys. It's that day where everybody's going to put it on the line. I expect tailgating to be at a high level, and let's go. Let's play some football.
All right, we'll go to Zoom now. We've got a question. Jeremy Kellum. Sorry, Jerry. Yep.
Jeremy, good to see you.
Man, good to see you as well, Coach. I know one thing that you put emphasis on is the middle 8. And looking at the first game, having giving up defense, giving up 3 points, and then getting the safety, and that started a momentum turn during that middle 8. Then looking at this past game, having a touchdown call back with the holding, and then having a turnover during the middle 8. What type of emphasis are you putting on that middle 8, and how important it is to play well those last 4 minutes of the first half, the first 4 minutes of the second half going into this first conference game?
I think it's imperative, and I'm glad you bring it up, right? We learned things about game 1, like in game 2, but it's only when you get a chance to show guys tape of what those things look like. Hey, 81-yard touchdown call back. That's not what you want, and the penalty was unnecessary. Right now, man, we've had 16 penalties in 2 games. We're averaging 8 penalties a game. That's not it. The margin for error. Okay, you got to shrink that, and you shrink that with the idea that you don't give away explosive plays. Okay, you don't make down and distances harder, and really winning the middle 8 provides momentum. And so when we went back and even when we looked at this game, we had a chance to take some momentum, and then you come out at half and you get a chance to do some things as well. These are the things that matter in the game of football. We call it situational football for a reason. Those situations allow teams to sort of, stretch it. For good or bad, man, it allows teams to stretch it out. And I think as our team looked at the film, there was no clear points to be made than some of the things that we saw, in game 2. Coming off of a game 1 and how that can apply to a game 3. So Western Kentucky this week is where we have to make sure that the application, fits so that we can find the type of success that we want.
Coach, you were the DC for Auburn back in 2021. Like you said, you were around Wolf Friend and TJ Finley. Mm-hmm. Do you think that gives you somewhat of an advantage, knowing what they like to do and when it comes to scheming up stuff against them?
I think we've all grown, right? I think as play callers, unless you're calling plays, you don't have the full understanding of what somebody's capable of, right? At the time, Will was the offensive line coach and heavily involved in the run game. So I think that being said, we know each other. We saw each other in practice. We went against each other in 9-on-7, but, I'm not calling plays now. I mean, I can give opinions, but I'm not like the play caller, Brian Stewart is. And, as we sat down to talk about what we know, what we knew then, like TJ Finley's had a couple stops, right? Started at LSU, then went to Auburn, then found, himself at Texas State where he had a great career. Now, he's there. TJ's a different guy now than he was at Auburn. And I think, with that, man, we have to give him his just due and the respect that he deserves. Same thing with Will. Will's been around the game a long time. Was at Mississippi State, and him and Mike Bobo were together at Georgia for a long time. So I think with that, you're going to see Tyson Helton's, true effect on what they do offensively. They're still the same team, man, that runs 3 or 4 trick plays a game. Right, you're gonna see FIB to the boundary, FIB to the field, full flood. I mean, you're gonna see a full gambit of stuff. Guys got to play good football. Our eyes got to be clean. We got to fit the run, and then pay attention to the details and do your job, because they give you so much eye candy in what they do that if you're not doing your job, they'll find ways to make you pay. I mean, I played this team over the years, and most of the time it's come down to the last possession, even when I was at Vanderbilt. So, to me, what I'll tell you is we have to be ready for any and everything, but it's good to be doing it at home. Big Blue, come on out. Let's do this.
All right, back to Zoom. Got Noah Maddox.
Morning, Coach. Noah Maddox, Shelby Times Gazette. Kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, the fans. Do you have a message to the fans that they can make a big difference on Saturday night, home conference opener, and with it being such a big opponent in terms of the rivalry?
Yeah, I mean, fan base makes all the difference. That's why college football is so special. Okay, I mean, you're always talking to your fan base about, coming out and making sure, that you're seen, you're heard, and you're felt. This fan base did a terrific job in game one, whether, withstanding. I mean, this was fun for our players to see. It was fun. Like, the pregame was fun. Everything was good about it except for the delay. Hopefully, we're not looking at a repeat of the delay, and what we want to do, man, is just play a football game. But when our fan base is there, it's different. The energy is different, okay? And so, what I would say is you're needed, you're necessary, man, you're wanted, and that's what, the game of college football is about. It's not just the game, it's the pageantry around the game. It's what fans do in game that make it so exciting and fun. So we look forward to seeing our fan base show up and show out.
Anything else for Coach Mason? Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
All right, it's now time for our student athletes. With us today, we've got safety Brendan Harris and tight end Holden Willis. We'll get started with Brendan.
Hey, Brendan. Talk a little bit about the challenges you guys faced, what you all learned coming out of – now you got 2 games under your belt as a unit, and in particular in the secondary.
That's a good question. I appreciate it. So as a team and as a defense, we want to be process-driven, not outcome-driven. So we kind of just figured out about ourselves that we need to be more honed in and just practice more on our process, be more detailed, and trust each other more. So as we look forward to this week, we're just going to just hone in back on our process.
Brendan, the second straight week, he may not be a Jackson Dart, but you're facing a great quarterback for the second straight week. Just talk about how you prepare and how last week can help you prepare for a quarterback of his caliber.
Just like you said, it's practice, all about practice. Practice is the most important thing. So as we approach this week, we're just going to have to be intentional in practice and be intentional with our game plan, trust what our coaches tell us what to do, and go out there and execute that.
You've been in part of intense rivalries at Vanderbilt and at Wake Forest. What are some of your teammates, your coaches telling you about to expect with the intensity of this week and in this game in particular?
Whenever you get an opportunity to play in a rivalry game, it's fun and it's special. We can feel the energy from the city of Murfreesboro, like you said, from the players to the coaches. So it's just another opportunity for us to go out and try to, do something special for the city of Murfreesboro.
What's been the favorite rivalry you've been a part of as a player in your career with all the stops you've made?
I guess I would say the UT Vanderbilt rivalry. That was pretty fun at Vanderbilt.
Brendan, now with 2 games under your belt under Coach Mason, how has it kind of felt to finally come full circle from a guy that recruited you early on in your career and getting to finally play for him now later in your career?
It's just all come to fruition at the end. You know, he had an opportunity to see me as a young guy. Now he's getting an opportunity to see me as an old guy. So it's just development over the years. I'm getting able to show him what I've seen, and I'm being able to learn from him as well, still even in this last year. So.
Anything else from Brendan? Good. Thanks, Brendan. Okay, on Zoom, we got Jeremy Kellum.
How you doing, Brandon, man?
Pretty good.
Man, that's good, man. Just understand that you got moved down to nickel. You know, the coach made that decision to be able to, you know, as part of the game plan. How do you like being closer to the line of scrimmage? Do you feel like that allows you to have a greater impact on the game? And do you feel like, you know, that you get to show your type of versatility as a DB to be able to play deep, but be able to come up and impact in helping the run game?
Thank you for the question. Yeah, it's really I'm just trying to be able to impact the game any way I can. The coaches wanted me to come down and try to help fit the run a little bit better. So that's what they needed me to do. So that's what I'm gonna do. And for me, it does help me develop my game a little bit better, being able to see it from different perspectives. Like you said, I'm kind of down closer to the box at times. So I'm really just trying to impact the game in any way I can.
Is that it for Brendan? Thanks, Brendan.
Appreciate it.
We'll now have Holden Willis.
Hey, Holden, can you describe in your best words, the feeling you had in past losses to Western Kentucky and how that fuels the guys that are on this roster, the veterans that are here?
Yeah. Last year was my first year really going against someone kind of new to the rivalry. But rivalries are the same everywhere you go. Those are usually the games that people have a little bit more edge about them, a little bit more why in the game and the reason why they play. The preparation's a little bit better. The attention to detail is a little bit better. But now the loss last year to them definitely still hurt because I knew that we left some stuff out there on the field that could have put us in a good position to win the game, and we failed to do that. So,
Holden, you had 6 catches on Saturday or whatever the number was, but it seemed like it came more easy to you on Saturday. Was that from scouting or was that from game planning? How did that work out?
Yes, sir. Just game planning, kind of like they asked after the game. Each week's going to be a little bit different. There's stuff that defenses we see weaknesses on, we see strengths, so the ball's going to find different plays. We're going to run the ball against some teams. We're going to throw the ball against some teams. We're going to do a mix of both against some teams. It really just depends on what they show us on film and what we know that we can do with the weapons that we got.
Holden, we talked about in camp about how many guys in the tight end room are going to play this year through 2 games. That's held true so far. How's sort of that group collectively, buying into what the offense is doing at the moment right now?
Yeah, I think our room plays a big role in what we're trying to do on offense. Going into fall camp and doing our football 101 is what we call it. Coach Reeder told us that he wants the tight ends to carry the spirit of our offense, and I think with all of us buying in and everybody knowing that they have a role, whatever that role is, whether it's blocking or whether it's 100 yards receiving or whether it's 2 plays a game, 20 plays a game, whatever that is, I feel like as a room we've bought in and everybody's doing their part to contribute.
You mentioned earlier being new to the rivalry last year and sort of, hearing those stories that buy in to give this game that sort of edge. What's that process like now that you're one of those guys telling those stories, to the players this year?
Just staying focused on the big deal. Coach always says keep the main thing, and the main thing is we want to win. Doesn't matter if it's a conference game, if it's out of conference, if it's a postseason game, whatever it is. All games matter. Last week mattered to us. This week matters to us. And there's no difference from game to game. Yeah, it's a rivalry, but to us, we just want to go win. And whatever we got to do on the field to do that is what we're going to do.
Anything else, Holden?
Thank y'all.
All right, everyone, that wraps up the press conference today. Thank you all. We'll see you again next week as the Blue Raiders prepare for homecoming against Duke. Thank you.